Hey everyone, I'm excited to be on here doing another video about the Mars retrograde. I did a video just a few days ago that told the story of Gaia and Uranus as a way to frame the retrograde, specifically around this being sort of pushed back into the womb, which is essentially what's happening as Mars is retrograding back into Cancer, the archetypal mother, the archetypal womb. And I wanted to talk today a little bit more specifically about some aspects that Mars is making that help that help color this retrograde and can help us know who to turn to, what kind of energies to turn to support us through what can feel like a really frustrating, um, disorienting time. So Mars is the planet of action, directed action, self-assertion. It's also the planet around anger and how we express anger. And Mars is really uncomfortable in a retrograde. Mars is, as a symbol, a circle and an arrow. It's about motion and forward motion. So the fact that it slowed down and is now moving backwards, especially in our culture, in this Western culture that really emphasizes just like do, constantly act and never stop and reflect. This is really uncomfortable. So, as Mars is in its retrograde, we can experience plans sort of falling apart, things being thwarted a bit, like our goals and our actions being thwarted a bit as um, if we're trying to continue moving forward at this time. So this is a time of pause and receptivity. And as Mars is moving back into Cancer, there's really two main themes that I wanted to talk about today. And I'm going to show the chart so that we can look at that together to map this out. So here is the chart. And we've got Mars here at 29 degrees of Cancer. It's just on the 6th. It went back into Cancer. And what I want to focus on today is the trine that it's going to be making to Neptune as it begins its retrograde through Cancer. So a trine is a really supportive aspect. It's when two planets are speaking through the same element. So they're speaking the same language. So Mars is in Cancer, a water sign, and Neptune is in Pisces, also a water sign. And Neptune is the planet of dissolution. So Pisces is the sign of dissolution. Neptune rules Pisces. So it's really powerful in Pisces. It's really powerful in these final degrees of Pisces, the final degrees of the entire zodiac. Neptune's going to be moving into Aries this upcoming year, which I'll talk about in a different video at a different time. But Neptune is a planet of surrender. Neptune in Pisces is really about release, surrender, catharsis, dissolution, allowing things to fall apart. Helping us remember that time is not linear, things are not linear, things are cyclical. And so Mars, that is a very forward moving, directed planet, it's in this retrograde, which is really uncomfortable. And I would say like Pisces and Neptune sort of like speak the same language as retrogrades in general. It's like nothing is solid, everything is um, subject to change. And Mars likes to feel in control, likes to feel empowered. And so, in this place of being pushed back into Cancer, it's really in this vulnerable state of the plans that we have in our lives not really coming together as we'd hoped, or a feeling of stagnation, a feeling of loss of motivation, loss of energy, things becoming sluggish. And this can be frustrating if we are continuing to try and move forward, or it can be really cathartic and healing if we can release into this time of unknown. So I'm definitely experiencing this in my personal life. And depending on your chart and your rising sign, this will take place in a different part of your chart in a different house. And I do chart readings, so if anyone wants to learn about how this might be impacting you directly, feel free to reach out for that. But collectively, there's this feeling of sort of like hitting a wall and needing to remember why we act. So, because though Mars would like to just go forward, 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 time is not actually linear, um, or it's linear and circular at the same time. So, this is the time of remembering the circular component. We have to go back and remember, and that also is a big part of Cancer, just the the nourishment and the replenishment we need to act out of a place that's really well resourced and really connected to our soul and connected to our sense of belonging and being on this planet, which is also the Mars in Cancer. So, this trine that Mars is making to Neptune really is supportive of these two main things. I think of the release of control and practicing faith, like the grittiness of actually practicing faith. I think we talk a lot about, and especially in different like spiritual communities, there's a lot of talk around like surrender to the universe, everything will come together, trust in the flow. And um, those are really, they sound very like lovely and beautiful in language, but when we actually have to do that, it can be really gritty and uncomfortable. So that is what's happening right now as Mars is in this retrograde. It's trining Neptune, which is saying release, control, and surrender to see what else is possible for you. You think you know where you're going, and I'm saying this to myself just like in general. We think we know where we're going, and sometimes we need that pause to allow things to shift and reorient it. Not, at this moment, it almost feels like a compass that's spinning in a circle, like we don't know which way to go. And that's okay. We have sometimes things just take time to settle as we're in times of transformation and change. And this sort of like thickness of this time, I think, is really palpable. Um, but then there's Neptune here giving a lot of really beautiful support and care of just like release, surrender. Um, there things will, and then eventually Mars will retrograde. In Mars's retrograde, there will be a trine to um, Saturn as well, which will be kind of around the time that Mars is going direct, which will offer a lot of support and encouragement. But really, this like trust, faith feel like really big keywords for this moment right now, and like the grittiness of the trusting and faith, which means tending to the parts that are feeling really afraid of releasing control. The other thing that comes up when I'm thinking about Mars in a retrograde motion trining Neptune is how we express our anger. So I think as Mars is retrograding back into Cancer, as I mentioned in my other video, I think this can bring up a lot of feelings around um, like the emotions of a child who is completely interdependent with the adult caregivers in their lives. And Mars anger can be an emotion. Anger as an emotion comes in to let us know that something is wrong, a boundary is being crossed. And depending on what kinds of what the context was for our young childhood and how we were or weren't allowed to express that anger, I think as Mars is moving back into Cancer, that can be really activated and coming up. Um, and as it trines to Neptune, I really feel like Neptune is a big supportive, it's the universal support that can allow us to, it could be really cathartic, like having some serious temper tantrum, like big cries, big surrenders, big grief around um, how anger shows up in our lives. And I think that's a really important experience for us to all go through and to consider like how to create that time and that container for those emotions to come up. Because often when we can't move, when we can't be thinking, doing, is when we're in that pause. That's when a lot of that deep stuff really comes up. And so we do have Pisces here that or Neptune in Pisces that feels really supportive of um, that release and surrender and catharsis around hard emotions that can come up. And that Mars in Cancer is like hot emotions, like hot in the face, really emotionally reactive out of frustration or out of being triggered. And I think like Mars in Cancer can also be those like childhood wounds being activated, what needs were not met as a child, and Mars retrograding there, sort of like pricking that point. And we have Neptune there providing this sort of like this bigger picture, this like spiritual, this yeah, this it's a like an energetic hug. Like you are cared for and you belong, you're a part of this wholeness, you belong to the wholeness of everything. Neptune in Pisces is the reminder of the wholeness of everything. um so yeah, those are the two main things that I would say might be coming up at this time, this sort of like feeling thwarted and unable to move forward and needing to just like surrender to um see what else is possible that isn't in your plans in your life right now, and also to um, engage with these challenging emotions that may be coming up around our personal needs, which is also Mars, like how our needs were and were not met, how our needs are and are not met now, and Neptune in Pisces being like a space that can really allow us to move those emotions through and release, because there's a feeling of a sense of belonging to the whole. Can really get the juices flowing, this Neptune and Pisces. So that is that for today. It was really great to get to hop on here and share. Please let me know if and how this is showing, how this retrograde showing up in your life. If any of this resonates with you. And yeah, I'll be back soon. So goodbye for now.